So without further ado, welcome everybody. Right now, as you see, we should be on the stage. We will be on the stage for most of this event, so no need to go anywhere. I want to quickly introduce you to our moderators today. Max Armbruster, the TalkPush's CEO and fearless leader, and Francis Chan, our Vice President of Product. They will be moderating both panels today, and I'm sure that you guys will have a lot to learn from them, and it'll be there are going to be some amazing conversations. I do encourage you to ask your own questions in the event chat, so that they can ask the panelists, whatever you guys want to know. We do have a lot of questions prepped, but we really want to make this as dynamic as possible. So feel free to go ahead and ask your questions, and we'll be making sure that we answer those. Without further ado, I want to make a quick introduction of our panelists from the first panel, sourcing and interviewing remotely. So as you know, this event is all about, the remote era, going fully remote, and what that means for talent acquisition at every stage of the process, right? So the first panel is sourcing and interviewing. We have Ms. Preeti Shirke from Teleperformance. She is the Senior Vice President of Recruitment at Teleperformance. And then we also have Mr. Kalpak Huddar. He is the Head of Human Resources at Sitel. And we have Ms. Freya Sheila Barquilla. She is the Director of Country Talent Acquisition at Optum. So amazing panelists. I'll let them introduce themselves when the panel actually starts, and they can tell you a little bit more about them. But very amazing people. And then I also want to quickly introduce the panelists from the second panel, which is onboarding new hires without offices. Like I said, we want to sort of go over every stage of the recruitment process, and that also includes onboarding, and it looks a lot different now, right, than it did a few months ago. So we have Mr. June Abo from Transcom. He is the Vice President for Talent Acquisition. We have Ms. Aleph de las Armas. She is Talent Acquisition for Global Resourcing at Manulife. And we have Mrs. Florette Navarro. She is the Vice President of Human Resources and Recruitment in ICOR Philippines. I just want to quickly go over the event agenda so that we all know where we are and what's happening at all times. First, we'll have the first panel discussion, sourcing and interviewing remotely. That's going to last about 45 minutes right here on the stage, followed by the second panel discussion, onboarding new hires without offices. Again, right here in the stage, that's going to last another 45 minutes. Then we have a really quick presentation from the TalkPush CEO, Max Armbruster. It's called Overcoming Fear and Building on Change. That's going to be happening, again, right here in the stage, and it's going to last about 15 minutes. And then after that, we're going to get to have some fun with a little networking dynamic that we always like to do. The way it works is you'll go to the networking area, which you should be able to see on your left after the panels and the presentations are over. And it's just 5 minutes. You get matched randomly with any other event attendees for 60 seconds. And we do this for 5 minutes. So it's kind of like speed dating. It's really fun. And then after that, you guys are free to check out the expo. It's a virtual expo where participating companies have booths, and you guys get to find out more about the companies, their offerings, and just hang out and get a little bit more information from panelists and other team members. TalkPush will be there. You guys will see me there at the expo, so I hope that you come. And I have super exciting news. We're holding a raffle. It's starting now. So basically what we're going to do is I'm going to send a link through the chat now to everybody. And all you have to do is input your information. And by the end of the event, we're going to be choosing a random winner. And you and your teammates will win a round of pizzas on us. So basically for your recruitment team, your talent acquisition team, pizza lunch, pizza dinner. So if you want to participate, I will be putting that link on the chat right now. And we will be picking a winner by the end of the event. And without further ado, I just want to tell you guys, you can follow us on social media. We're pretty much everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Here are the links, and that's it. That's all I got for you. So without further ado, I will please ask Mr. Francis Chan to join me on stage so that we can get the first panel started. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Ivana. I am very excited to be able to help moderate and facilitate the first panel. We've got a great lineup today, and I know Ivana gave a brief introduction, and I'm going to let the speakers talk more about themselves before they share their opinions. But I think we've put together a very interesting panel because we've got a leader that in recruiting. And we also have an HR head of HR that has a slightly different perspective, as well as an HR business partner. So I think that in addition to the difference in company, difference in location, they also come with a slightly different perspective in terms of recruiting. So I'm very much looking forward to having a conversation with them, picking their brains a little bit and learning more about remote sourcing and remote hiring. So at this point, can I ask the fellow panelists to join me on stage? Freya, Kalpak, and Preeti? Okay, everybody imagine our panelists walking up the stage right now. And they've just taken a spot at the stool that we have right in the center of the podium. All right. So thank you very much. Very excited to have you join the first panel of today's session. So as Ivana mentioned, we're going to be we welcome questions from the audience. But before the questions come in, we actually also have some questions that we thought would be interesting for most folks. So now that we have been in this remote sourcing and working for recruiters, and then meeting the candidates remotely for quite a while now. This is like the new normal. I think there's probably a number of things that the team learned and has become a little bit better. So the first question that I have is what does your current application process look like, and what changes did you make, and what were some of the fine tunes that you did in order to adapt to remote operations? And I know that we very much like to hear from all of the panelists, but I'm just going to go alphabetical, with first name. So I'm going to call on Freya to share her thoughts first before we go to Kalpak and Preeti.
Sure. Hi, Francis. Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Cool. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, to all the attendees, to the panelists. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. Happy to answer your question, Francis. So when the pandemic happened, we knew we needed to sustain business hiring on critical positions without compromising the safety of our candidates, recruiters, hiring managers, and our community, which is paramount. Now, in order to address this, we quickly shifted to virtual recruitment, remote onboarding, and redesigned a lot of our support processes in order to make this successful while ensuring we continue to give an exceptional candidate experience. Now, this feat was accomplished through the collaboration of talent acquisition and many of the human capital COEs and teams and business teams alike. We could only do it together. Specifically, changes includes shifting to online applications greatly through our work at Optum.com site, integrating tools like LinkedIn to our Taleo, and moving away from legacy sourcing channels such as our very, very previous heavy dependencies on recruitment hubs. So we had to invest on social media, digital, virtual, online events, and platforms so that we could simulate the physical experience though virtually and hopefully give a little bit more. So overall, Francis, an agile, out-of-the-box thinking, plus a very technology-infused process and genuine care and compassion for our candidates was the key in turning the situation around and adapting to our new normal. That's it.
Wow. it looks like you guys did a whole lot, in terms of thinking about leveraging different social media, different sourcing channels, but also maintaining or keeping candidate experience in mind. So Kalpak and Preeti, do you have other thoughts or other things that you'd like to add, such as some of the things that you are actually doing or contemplating doing, with your organizations?
No, I think I would agree with Freya. In fact, my experience in India was exactly almost on the same lines. Last year, when this pandemic started, we were not at all hiring through any digital manner. We were more focused on a manual hiring process. Candidate walking in our sites, we interviewing and making offers, and it took like 8 weeks for us to shift from doing a touch hiring to a touchless hiring. It was a tough time, but I think kudos to our recruiters, our onboarding teams, our training teams who quickly adapted to the change. And I remember by end of April, if I'm not wrong, we were hiring and onboarding 100% candidates in complete digital environment and completely touchless environment. And I think it was welcomed by the candidates because it's safe. It makes them safe. And that point in time, our priority was safety of candidates, safety of our associates. So I think it was a tough transition, but it helped a lot. So I think great learning for all of us.
Wow, it's actually quite impressive to hear you say that it took you, while you may make it seem like it's a long time, but 8 weeks to change from a high touch to touchless process. It's actually very impressive. So this is
Thank you.
quite remarkable. And anything to add? If not, maybe we can move on to the next question. Shall we?
Sure, Francis. I could take a stab at the next one. Yes, because I think we also pretty much followed the same journey that Kalpak and Freya was referring to. I think for us, I believe the scale was a rather large challenge, and I can give a small context to how it shaped up for us. So I represent Teleperformance. We're a rather large BPO, and a lot of our hiring is involved. And a lot of our hiring involved interacting with people, in person, face to face. That was generally the rule of the thumb. It called for better hiring if you were able to meet people. Gathering a crowd was considered a success measure. The more people you could invite to your office, the better placed you were as an employer. I think those were some of the more popular norms in recruiting. I think that broke away when suddenly we started seeing empty waiting rooms. Nobody was really wanting to come to office, forget going anywhere else in person to get recruited. So I think technology, yes, was a big savior. And then we took our time to transition. Our intent had always been there, which is why a lot of homework was done pre-pandemic. I think we never anticipated that we'd reach that stage so quickly. But I think we gathered steam the moment we realized that there was no other way out. And yes, today I think we seamlessly hire without speaking to people in person. We're still connected through various mediums, again provided by technology, the way we're connecting today. But yes, it's been a rather longish journey to really reach to where we are today, to what I remember a year ago when the pandemic hit and the lockdowns were forced in the country. So yes, I would say it's been a rather long journey.
Wow, interesting. Thank you for sharing. And I think maybe we can move on to maybe just as interesting a question is that at Talkbush, we also had experienced a change in the in the hiring practice and type of candidates that we look for. And this question is around have your ideal candidate profiles changed since last year? So were there things that you looked for before that's no longer as relevant, or the other way around? What are some things, some qualities and traits that were not as important before, now that you think, no, this is now really critical? And I think when Preeti answered her question, she gave a little bit of a glimpse of the scale and the type of operations that she works on. I think we didn't have a chance to understand your organization, so Freya and Kalpak. So maybe on your next question, you can also share a little bit about your operations as well. So maybe for this, has this ideal profile changed? I'll ask Kalpak to chime in first.
Yeah, sure, Francis. I think there are two pieces to answer this question. Number one, is the profile changing? Profile has been ever changing. We have seen significant change in the customer expectations in the last 5 years. We have seen significant change in the business models, and therefore, your intake of the talent is substantially changed. There has been focus on candidates being smart and digital savvy, high learning agility. I don't think most of the organizations today are looking at experience as a key factor, but they are looking at skill and ability to learn faster as key aspects of candidate skill areas. But to be precise, in the last 12 months or 18 months, or typically from March 2020 onwards, there is a logistical status that has changed for a candidate profile, and that is whether the candidate has internet at home, whether the candidate has systems to operate from home, whether the candidate has a reasonably quiet place from where they can work. I know it could be very difficult at times for candidates to with the various social strata that people we hire from, but still that becomes a requirement. And then the last point is the candidate willing to work from home? I think it is making a lot impact in terms of your talent pool. We have seen, in last 12 months, a good amount of people whom either we couldn't select or who could not continue their assessment process because they were not meeting one of these criteria. And I remember that, last year in quarter 2, quarter 3, a lot of organizations, I know typically in India and of course some in Philippines as well, started providing support to employees. So we gave Wi-Fi support to people. Initially, when we wanted to ramp, we provided systems to people. But I don't think that's a scalable model. The model that would work well for us is bring your own device. Look for candidates who could operate from their home with their own systems. That makes things more flexible. So yes, I do believe that the candidate profile from this point of view has significantly changed.
Mm-hmm.
I actually couldn't agree more with.
Thank you.
Oh yes, sorry, Francis. I think there's a bit of a lag in what I'm hearing. So I would second that, Francis. What Kalpak is saying, we're more focused now, looking at some of the logistical and infrastructural requirements for people, while skill continues to be, I would say it is still important. We're still checking for the right skills, the right competencies. This has only made it more difficult because now we're looking for infra, we're looking for logistical setups, and more importantly, I think we're looking at people's ability to be able to work in a home setup. Because what we did observe was people were very comfortable once they're in office, everyone's working together. The social interactions are so critical to you being able to do your work. The little breaks that you get with your friends at work, those were so much more important, which today I think we limit ourselves to taking those breaks with our family. And sometimes work hours are endless. So I think it was more important to get people tuned into that environment and whether they could operate. Very slowly, I think the fear started to become secondary. Earlier, there was panic, there was fear, people didn't want to step out, so working from home was welcomed. But I think over a period of time, we started realizing that not everybody wanted to stay at home and work. There were so many people who wanted to step out. And the strain of working from home was getting to them. So I think what started becoming important as part of our questioning techniques was, are you really signing up to working from home? And this has nothing to do with the pandemic or the fear, because the first sight of lockdowns getting released, people would run back to work, and that's something that I did as well. So I think that was a definitely an addition to our questioning checklist, that are you really signing up to working from home? And this has not got everything to do with the fear of you not being able to step out.
Sure, and I definitely agree, Francis, with my co-panelists, and I'd like to add additional perspective to that. So they covered the movement or the change to, also checking if they can either work on site or at home. What I'd like to add is, aside from this, we've also seen other behaviors in our candidates. So as a quick background, we are a leading health services company, and we hire various roles. So we hire from customer service roles, clinical roles, and technology professionals. So while we always look at the technical expertise and work expertise, we also look at the individual in its totality, right? The whole individual. And as we look for talents aligned to these roles or skills, we've also observed that, as part of the evolved candidate profiles, we've seen candidates who are now looking for employers that are also very sensitive to employee wellness needs, very aligned to what Preeti had said. So employee wellness, their safety, their overall well-being, this now has become important to our candidates because they're now juggling between the fine balance of work and personal life in just one area. It's at home. We've also noticed that there's an increased interest of our candidates who look for employers who are willing to give back to the community during these times, like in the pandemic. So they look for employers who are not just stable, who don't only offer growth and stability, but employers who also give back to the community and look for their personal well-being. So while there are some things that don't change, like the role, the skill requirement, the technical expertise, we now consider the individual in its totality, which includes their wellness and their well-being, as well as giving back to the community. I hope that helps.
Yeah, this is certainly a very, very interesting perspective, and thank you for sharing. I particularly, the comment by Preeti about, are you working from home, as a stopgap, or do you really want to work from home and you're dying to get back to the office? And the point from Freya was also very interesting, in the sense that it's a good reminder for all of the recruiting professionals here that that the employer brand, the employee value proposition about giving back to the society, caring about the employee well-being and wellness. These are all things that has always been important, but maybe in this very challenging times are even more important values to convey to the candidates. Okay, so I guess I'll switch gears a little bit and maybe talk go from candidates to maybe to the talent acquisition or recruiting teams. I'd like to ask, what tips do you have for talent acquisition teams that are struggling to connect with candidates online?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that as teams do remote hiring, all of us experience these type of challenges, and maybe Kalpak, do you want to share some of your thoughts and tips for the audience today?
Sure, and I think I would share our own experience, because I told the team earlier that we were not doing remote hiring a year ago. As Preeti told, that we were looking at how many of our waiting lounge or hiring centers were filled with walk-ins. We had to switch our recruiters' understanding from that to remote hiring, where how do you reach out to candidates, and when candidates are not walking into your sites, it becomes important for you to then tell your team that how do you be more visible in the market. So one of the focus that we gave to our team members, that create your brand in your network. Let people talk about you. Let people talk about your organization. Be visible in social media, because that's where we are going to hire people from. And I think social media has been one of the strongest platform in the last 12 months, which has helped us meeting our requirement. And our dependence on these walk-ins or direct people walking into your centers has reduced considerably. So we had to prepare our teams to navigate with various channels, how to operate with ATS. I think that now has become most of the way of life for most of the companies as well as recruiters. I would believe that if someone says, I don't know ATS, or I don't know a video interview, or I do not know how to get a candidate apply on my website and move through the steps of ATS. So your team need to be more digitally savvy. Your team need to be more agile in terms of adopting these new technologies that are helping us sourcing, assessing, and deploying the talented workplace. So I think there is a shift change in terms of recruiters' approach to the talent pool, and how do you attract them? How do you bring them to your door, and then do an assessment? I think there's a see-through change, and I think across segments, the recruiters need to adopt these skills pretty fast. Hope I answered what you asked.
Yeah, and Francis, I'd like to add to that. I won't repeat anything my Mr. Kalpak had mentioned. I'd probably underscore everything he said. I totally agree with you. I want to add to that because this is very real, not just for the recruiters, but also the candidates, right? And which is why probably there's some struggle as we adjust to the new normal. And I'm going to anchor my response on our core value, which is compassion. So compassion is one of our core values in Optum, and we try to apply that best we can in every situation we have. And since we're talking about candidates, this is about, how do we apply compassion to our candidates? So putting ourselves in our candidates' shoes and trying to figure out the ways in which we can make application for them as convenient as possible during these uncertain times is certainly going to be very helpful. So I suggest on putting a premium on flexibility, out of the box thinking, and creative new ways of engaging online, as we've heard Mr. Kalpak talk about. And additionally, how do we put the candidates' needs ahead so that while it's an online and virtual setting, we still give a very, very delightful experience for them. Now, last but not the least, I would offer patience. Really, nobody was prepared for this situation, and it's really being patient about the situation and how we can push forward. Candidates come from different walks of life, and each has a story. They're from a different situation, which they're contending with, right? That's just the reality. So we need to build teams who are extremely resilient, agile, customer-centric, so that based on the need of the hour, we can keep refining our approaches and adjust to the needs of our candidate. So I believe that there are some things we can certainly change and put within our control, but we also have to be ready to accept that there are some realities we just need to roll with the punches with. And that means persevering, connecting both the company, the business, and the candidates so that they can find the careers that they're aspiring for.
Wow, thank you so much for the reminder about aligning the company strategies and goals, and then trickling down to the recruiting team and making sure that the candidates do feel that connection. So in the earlier question, we spoke about how do we help the talent acquisition team connect with candidates online. I'm going to go a little bit deeper and actually talk about for many companies, they're looking at building a community. And I'd like to ask, maybe we'll start with Preeti around, what are some of the initiatives that you have taken on to create and inspire community building, or doing this all from distance or remotely?
Sure, Francis. And I think, again, I'll speak with the experience we've gathered over the last 1 year, since the time we realized that, getting people into a room is no longer going to be an option. We're going to have to do everything remotely. I think that's when the creative juices started spilling out. And we realized that there were so many ideas that people already had about how we could operate, stay connected, and stay engaged with each other, with our employees, with our teams, with our customers as well, to ensure that we still maintain a good engagement score. We maintain that healthy connect with our employees. And I think one of the few things that we did, and I still remember the time when we started talking about building these interesting groups, which could allow people to do more than just being functional at work. Yes, we do work. We work 9 hours a day, sometimes more. But I think the key element that started coming out was we were able to experience people in their home doing things that they love doing, whether it was yoga, whether it was book reading, whether it was music, whether it was sports. We knew how everybody was restricted with their mobility, and we knew they couldn't get out of their houses. What made things a lot easier for us was everybody wanted to get connected. I think we crave social interaction. We want people to open up avenues and platforms which can allow us to demonstrate our capabilities beyond our working abilities. And I think we capitalized on that. We built so many sessions. In fact, there was one I was a part of, which was more for the leadership team to kind of let loose a bit. The intent was to set up ourselves into a Zumba class. Imagine doing that with a Zumba instructor on video, and now you're standing in front trying to not let your family see what you're really doing, because maybe somebody like me have never done Zumba before, but I took my shot. I said, let's go for it. And at the end of that 30-minute session, beyond the exhaustion that I felt for myself, having moved around so much, it was so much fun that I continued to engage on that topic for a couple of weeks till we got something else to start talking about. And that's when I realized that these were some of the things we weren't doing when we were in office. We'd assumed that this was meant for the agent population, for the frontline staff that we hire, because we're constantly focused on keeping them engaged. And we realized that the leadership team is also needing that similar engagement, that similar connect. And that was one of the things we did. Outside of that, I think we, and this was again something personally that I did for my team, recruiting was becoming very, very stressful, knowing that we were pulling all corners. Numbers weren't any less, which was a good thing. But yes, we were changing the entire style of working. I've always attributed recruitment and the kind of work that we do, and I give a very small analogy to that. It's like changing anything in recruitment is like adding a bogie to a running train. No one's letting you stop the train till you fix the parts. You're going to have to fix everything while the train continues to run, which means recruitment will continue to happen. You want to change something, you change while you're running, which makes it rather difficult because there's no time to pause. No one's going to come back and tell me, okay, take a week, don't deliver numbers, don't deliver batches, don't get people in, do what you need to do, and then we'll start over again. So we continued to evolve, and I could start to see a lot of strain building in my team, who was struggling to operate from home, getting adjusted to new systems, getting adjusted to the environment that they were operating in. One of the very basic things that we did was we used a midnight hour to set up some small sessions. It started very formally with us having conversations with the team. We just brought everybody on a call together. We could just freely speak to each other. Slowly, those formal conversations started becoming informal. From having discussions about what we ate to what we are drinking, we started actually drinking on those calls. And that's when we realized that there was so much of happiness that people just didn't want to log off. What started with a 1-hour call got extended to 4 hours, with all of us sitting and enjoying a drink. It's bringing your own, booze is what we call it. And we were drinking at home, enjoying that opportunity to connect with each other. And I realized that over a period of 6 months, everyone started expecting that, when is it going to be the next one? And, when will we catch up again? Just the intent and the excitement of doing that together, we could start to see more smiling faces. The strain was still there. The stress was there. But I would say we were better prepared, and we were still okay with that strain because we knew there was a way to let it out as well.
Thank you for sharing. This is really interesting. There's certainly some tips for us as team members or team leaders, to think about and thinking a little bit, being a little bit more outside of the box, and do a lot more things online that we maybe didn't thought was appropriate, but heck, let's just try it. It could be fun. If it doesn't work out, at least we'll have interesting topics to talk about for a while. And I know Kalpak, you wanted to share a little bit on this topic as well. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was just recalling that most of us, some or other way, do almost same things for our people. It's just how you prepare that sauce differently. But the beauty is every sauce works well. And we have an initiative in Sitel which is called Max. You see, I'm wearing a T-shirt of Max Spurt. Max is my associate experience, and it's a global program that we had rolled out 2 years ago. Now, what does this program do is it creates internal virtual communities within Sitel network. And we deploy it for value addition. We deploy it for seeking feedback from people. We deploy it where there are changes needed. So it becomes a pretty handy tool for us to get people more engaged with us on day-to-day on various subjects. And typically in last 12 months, 15 months, what we have seen is, and as Preeti rightly said, that it's less about your associates working from home or coming to office or their choice, but it's also more about how their families are taking it up. They were never accustomed to somebody sitting at home and taking a call. I mean, talking of India at 3 a.m. in the morning and constantly talking to a customer. And they never thought that the family would be disturbed so much because they never worked from home. And now when you see 100% of your agents taking calls from home, at least for those who are supporting on voice channels to your customers, I just realized that, it has a huge stress on the family. And we initially assumed that everything will be all right. But over 6 months, we started getting feedback from people that some of them are not able to manage it because it's disturbing their families a lot. So I think there was a huge amount of sensitivity that we all developed. And, just going one step ahead of some of the engagement stuff that Preeti talked about, we actually started involving family members in our Friday fun activities. I mean, what we did was our monthly R&R, we invited family members of the award winners to be part of our R&R activity. The leadership connected with families once in a quarter to understand how are they going through this situation. And I know, I mean, very respectful and very indebted to all family members that with all challenges that they had, they spoke all well about how the organization took care of their near and dear ones who are employed with us. And I think for everyone else, the pain of somebody constantly speaking to a client at midnight was less over the benefit of safety that the organizations have provided to them. So I think communities have changed the definition. The families have become part of your larger community. And I think that's a big change. And I'm thinking that that's a change going to stay for longer because it's going to change the entire landscape of talent acquisition and sourcing strategies now.
Wow, very insightful and inspirational stuff. It's so not only are we thinking about our employee base, it's our employee base family. That's our extended community that we should also care about them and think about them and involve them as well. So we're running a little bit short on time. So for the audience that have questions, please send them out. There are not a lot of time left. With this very experienced and very forward-thinking leaders on this panel. And before we get the question, maybe I'll ask a little bit of forward-thinking question around what challenges do you expect to see and have to overcome going forward with remote hiring? So we all have a fair amount of experience. We've got some routines and process and systems down. What more do you think are challenges that you see going forward that would have to face, or you're planning, working on?
I can take that on, Francis, since up my alley. So that's a question that we live day in, day out, right? Because as this pandemic continues, it's very uncertain and things always keep changing. So we really have to be very agile. Now, the challenge with remote processing for me personally would be two things. Number one, it's how do we sustain and keep our candidate experience high and engaged now, given that, as you've rightly alluded to earlier, the behaviors and interests of our candidates change as the times change. The second one would be our processing speed, right? We have to, break the physical barrier. We have to break even the digital barrier because, things are now redefining itself. So it's much like how much online shopping and food deliveries have changed given the situation right now. The situation has turned towards digital, so it's very easy to shop and dine out. It's easier, right? Now, it's very, very the same with recruitment. For our candidates, it's much easier to apply to multiple organizations at the same time because they can do it at the comfort of their homes at any time they please, right? Additionally, aside from this, our candidates themselves are transforming. They have been so used to physical, in-person conversation, interviews to get the rapport up during an interview or a conversation. But since we're moving to digital, we have to simulate the best way possible that they still have the same experience, still great rapport, despite it being virtual and online. So these are just the top two things I would put on priority as we continue to hire virtually. It's making sure we continue to keep our candidate experience high, engage, and roll through the times, as well as speed up our processing, make it continuously more convenient, seamless, and easy for our candidates, despite being in a virtual scenario.
Okay, so despite changing times, it's the back to the basics, but maybe different tools around maintaining and improving candidate experience, but also in terms of the operational efficiency, the processing speed, keeping that high or continue to improve it. Great reminder. Kalpak and Preeti, any more to add from your perspective?
I'd probably just add one. Sorry, Kalpak, go ahead.
Go ahead, Preeti. No, please go ahead.
I'm gonna do. Okay, so Preeti, ladies first.
Sure. So I think the only point I'd add to that, and I think Freya covered it beautifully. I guess it's all encompassing. But one of the only points I would add to that is one of the challenges we do see is acceptance across the board, whether it is the interviewer or the interviewee. Acceptance to know that there's going to be very limited social interaction. There's going to be maximum digital, which means everyone's going to have to be equally involved. We come from a time when the recruiter would support a candidate end-to-end in recruiting, coordinating, getting them onboarded, filling their application, supporting them in every way, answering their questions. Now it's literally like talking to a machine. And people are not the most happiest when they're just being put in front of a machine and there's no person who they can reach out to. And that's the piece that needs some adaptability to be brought into the picture. And the faster we adapt, not by force. I think earlier we were forced to adapt because the situation was such. But now that we slowly start adapting by will, I think we'll be able to move faster. Otherwise, scale is always going to be a challenge for us. And I think I can speak that for my company. Scale is the only thing that kind of comes into the picture, looking at the volume we hire. And I'm talking about hiring about 75, 80,000 people a year. And at that scale, if you're going to look at 100% digitization, then there's going to be a lot of hands and legs who are going to have to be in sync with the digital proposition. And the fact that for a very long time during the recruitment process, you may not have a person involved, and it's only going to be someone really at the tad end of the interviewing process, which means you're really going to have to put up a very good show through a machine, as opposed to being able to do that in person.
Okay, and thank you for sharing. Also a great reminder that in terms of limited interactions, that the support that candidate gets from recruiters is a lot less. So there's a little bit of acceptance and getting used to this new mode of interaction for both sides. Kalpak, leaving the last comment for you, maybe for this panel around this topic, or maybe some other things that you have in mind on challenges ahead, or general challenges in general.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call them challenges. I think challenges are good because they help you improve most of the time. I think what we need to be cautious of that in last 12 months or perhaps in next 6 months, your clients and customers could be still accommodative of the changes and the challenges that you have. Maybe allowing some of the small issues to happen, because everyone knows that things are not good, stable outside. But going forward, if this model has to sustain and work longer, I think there are new nuances that would come that every one of us will need to be ready for. Number one, as Preeti rightly said, that there is no connect with the recruiter and the candidate. So how do you continue to emotionally connect with the applicant? Because you have to not only emotionally connect, but you have to emotionally onboard the person to the organization. That's one aspect. Second aspect I would see is the concept of recruiter will change, and you will get to see a new concept called universal recruiter. You'll not have a sourcing team separate, interviewing team separate, your onboarders will be separate. You will have a universal recruiter coming in place, because most of the stuff would be done by the technology, and therefore your recruiters need to scale up to support the technological advancement, and therefore you will need an universal recruiter. And last point is, organizations will have to focus on IT security. More and more people getting evaluated, screened remotely. How do you avoid impersonation? How do you ensure that the person who took the interview is the same person whom you made offer, and it's the same person who actually joined you? You need to be cognizant of these facts. Beside, constant proctoring in terms of ensuring that the environment at work at home is secure, and your candidates are continue to deliver the same client experience, but in much secure and controlled environment. So I think there are new nuances that will come, but I'm sure the way industry has always, we will overcome them as well.
Wow. Thank you so much for fantastic summary, and it's a great lead-in for our next session as well, because Kalpak, when you talk about the universal recruiter, the recruiter with the support of technology needs to source, recruit and hire, as well as onboard, and which leads great lead-in to our next session around onboarding. So with this, I'd like to thank a wonderful panel here. Fantastic insights, many very applicable, immediately applicable for us. So thank you very much, Freya, Kalpak, and Preeti, for a wonderful session, and I hope you guys continue to stay online, participate in the other panels, as well as the networking session towards the end of today's session as well. And with that, I'd like to pass the stage back to our facilitator, Ivania.
Thank you, Francis, for very creatively hosting this for us and making us comfortable. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, actually, I would like to take 5 more minutes if we could expand the panel, because we're getting some really awesome questions from the audience.
Sure. Okay. So we're honored. So we got an extra 5 minutes. So this is real-time performance feedback here. So we got some extra time. So we must have done well. Right.
Yes, no, so we're getting some really great questions here. I have one from an anonymous asker who wants to know, while technology might be speeding up hiring, how do you gauge recruiter effectiveness outside speed of hire? And how are your recruiters upskilling themselves as market experts and advisors? Who wants to take that one?
I can. Sure. Oh, go ahead, Kalpak. No worries.
Go ahead. Now, Francis already told ladies first, so you go first.
All right. Feel free to supplement if I miss anything or you want to add.
No,
so, two things. I want to keep it concise, and I'll probably talk about our top two metrics that we always keep in mind, very consistent with what I've shared earlier. One is candidate NPS. This is basically your candidate net promoter score. This is king for us because at the end of the day, whether we hire a candidate or we don't hire a candidate, we want to make sure we give them the best experience possible because one, they become our best employees, and two, they also become our brand advocates. So this is a report, the analytics we do every month, and we keep top of mind. We hold it near and dear to our hearts. That's number one. Second would be our basics, right? This would be fill rates, on-time fulfillment, your share of hires, because that's how you see if your recruiter is able to adjust and transform themselves in these times. Of course, I would like to say that we want and we do provide enablement to our team members because everybody needs help. I need help, right? And some of the trainings that we do right now would be, of course, their behavioral learnings, because more than ever, it's not just a technical skill as a recruiter that's required. It's also behavioral skills, leadership skills. How do you converse and discuss in a virtual environment? How do you keep engagement up? How do you talk about key points in a very concise but engaging manner? So we have trainings from a behavioral standpoint. Two, we also have refresher courses on, what are your technical basics, how to source, right? As you've heard my peers talk about, it used to be in the recruitment center hubs. Now, you actually have to have skill in sourcing digitally, sourcing through social media. And we've taken up courses through LinkedIn, courses in terms of being a strategic sourcer. And I love the concept on the Universal Recruiter by Kalpak. That is definitely our way to go as we move forward into the future. So for new hires, we have a boot camp that we're currently designing so that we can keep our new hires well-oriented and also productive in their next few days, all the support that we can give. So those are the things we're looking at right now, and I hope that could be helpful.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more question because now we have extended. So one more question. I'm finding this question. I see it a lot, so I'm really curious what you guys have to say about it. Some of our attendees are wondering if using job portals is still worth it. Is it still a good source of applicants? What have you seen?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, for a sourcer, anything is important as long as it brings the candidate to you. So I would not say the value of any of the sourcing platform is diminishing, because as the organizations are getting smarter, the providers are also getting smarter. I have been talking to some of our friends in Indeed and various platforms, and the kind of work they are doing to ensure that you get quality of candidates. I think for the time to come and more digital focus and remote hiring, the sourcing platforms and job boards are playing very, very important role in our pool of candidates. Social is an important platform, but I'm not sure to what extent companies are hiring through social, maybe 20-30%. It will take time to pick it up, but you still have little dependency on the sourcing platforms and job boards, and they add a lot of value. I mean, I see a lot of value in them, and they would continue. I think, as I told earlier, more than that, the focus would now be on looking at how you are recruiting smartly. How are you reducing your turnaround time? How are you using various sourcing channels most effectively in the larger interest of your organization. Because as Freya earlier told that there are some standard metrics that people look at. You look at fill rate, you look at on-time fill rate, you look at the total time to hire. But how many of the people really look at recruiter yield? How many people you have hired per recruiter? What has been your conversion? What has been your funnel rate in terms of footfall versus total people join? And that's what will drive which of these sourcing channel is important, which is giving you better yield, which is giving you far superior result. And therefore, I think the importance of these sourcing channels will depend on their output to the organization, net output to the organization. Hope, Ivana, I answered your question.
Can I just add maybe 2 more bits to it? And this is something we've been trying relentlessly. And like Kalpak said, social media platforms in India are just there kicking in, becoming a medium for people to see that there are jobs. A traditional source of hiring was portals, where an active job seeker would put up their resume. We'd go and hunt them out, and we'd start reaching out to them. I think I'll maybe package it in a way that we're also now reaching out to some of the people who are maybe today not active job seekers, because the demand is now changing from getting people to move around where there was an age group that we were hiring to now we've having migrated to now also looking for people who may not be searching for a job for 12 months of the year, but they may be only interested in working for 3 months or maybe 6 months. And we have such opportunities which are seasonal in demand, which need people to work for a temporary period of time. And there are people out there who are willing to commit only for a temporary period because the rest of their time is maybe allocated to some other activities. They could be active caregivers, they could be homemakers, they could be mothers returning from leave. So the other way to reach out to them is through social media platforms, because we know everyone's pretty much either hooked onto a Facebook or an Instagram or a Twitter. So yes, we'd like to advertise. The returns will be slow because these are not your active job seekers, but that's a very good platform to go to brand, to make yourself visible. There's an additional activity that's available on these platforms to build a like profile. And that's something that we're doing off late, is using our existing employee base to mirror them onto social media platforms and look for people who mirror these kind of folks that are already working for us. Because that way we can do more targeted branding, more targeted advertising. So that way a job that we post doesn't really go to everybody. It'll go to some very, very definitive audience. And chances that we will get returns from there would be a little higher than what we're otherwise seeing. So these are some good things. They're still, I would say, work in progress. A lot of them are starting to show small turnarounds in terms of results, but they're absolutely good avenues to use as against the regular traditional channels, which are anyways working for us, no matter what.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. I mean, the importance of social media, it's something that we talk about all the time here. So totally on the same page there. I do have to say that we're out of time. So without further ado, I think I'll let you guys say goodbye. And Francis, say if you have any last words before we begin the second panel.
Well.
So, Francis, thank you very much for facilitating the session really well. I also had a great time with Kalpak and Preeti. Hope we can meet each other offline too. It was my pleasure being here, and a great audience today. Thanks everyone.
Likewise, Freya. Thank you so much. Thank you, Francis. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being great panelists. Now, my job was actually pretty easy. I just asked the question and let you guys chime in. So this is great. And thank you very much, Ivana, for graciously giving us an extra 10 or so minutes. So it makes us feel good that we actually got a bigger slot of time. So it means that we did something well. Good job, team.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.